Hi, everyone. This is Tom Salemi of DeviceTalks. Welcome to our Future of MedTech series. I'm joined by Kurt Cannon, Vice President of Endoscopy Marketing at Olympus. Kurt, thank you for joining us.
Absolutely. My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
So before we get into the question of the day, tell us a bit about yourself. How'd you find your way into the MedTech industry?
Probably like many people do. Got out of college, was looking for my first job, wanted to get into sales, and I stumbled into an opportunity with a med device company. And as I progressed from one job to the next and into more advanced med device companies, I just fell in love with not only obviously the patient care side of it, but also with the physicians that you deal with every single day.
Well, Olympus is one of the leaders in medical devices, particularly in endoscopy. But we're seeing a change in the marketplace for those procedures, the rise of ambulatory surgery centers. How do you see that developing in the future? Well, first of all, what do you see is driving the push toward having more procedures done in ASCs?
I think, Tom, there's a lot of things, and one of them might actually surprise you, and it's a personal opinion of mine, but really, one is about patient convenience. Where do patients want to be seen? If you're going for, let's talk about screening colonoscopy being the most common thing done in an outpatient center from an endoscopy perspective, you're going to want to go to a place where it feels as close to home as possible. Often people are intimidated by hospitals in the hospital setting. Things seem more complex there. And it just seems more inviting when you go to an outpatient center. But in talking with physicians, what I've actually heard a lot is the physicians themselves want to have better work-life balance. The idea of efficiency used to be efficiency to do more cases. Efficiency today is about efficiency so that I can get home. So I think there's patients driving it. There's certainly reimbursement that is driving it as well. But I think you've also got physicians who are more engaged in wanting that kind of work-life balance.
It's perfectly understandable motivation. So I would think one would look at this kind of at first blush and see that whether you're selling to a hospital or selling to an ASC, the process wouldn't be much different. I'm guessing it's probably more complicated than that. How has Olympus changed its marketing toward ASCs? Or let me not assume that there is a difference. Is there a difference between marketing and selling to ASCs than hospitals?
There is. You need to really understand the different business models. The hospital model, an outpatient portion of a hospital versus an actual ambulatory endoscopy center or an ambulatory surgical center. There are different business models. They have different needs on a daily basis. Their demands from an economic perspective are different because reimbursements are different by site of care. So one thing that's changed dramatically is I think companies have learned that they can't just develop a product and expect to be able to sell it to everyone the exact same way.
Interesting.
Now, certainly you can't differentiate your price point to a customer just because they're in setting A or setting B. There are rules against doing that. So you have to find other reasons and other differentiating factors as you consider what's important. So you've got the cost of service, the cost of consumables versus the cost of capital. So understanding the capital needs, operational needs of centers versus hospitals is absolutely critical. So the salesperson, the organization itself, you've got to have a much more dynamic approach.
So looking forward, what does Olympus see the future holding in terms of ASCs versus hospitals? Do you predict in 5 years or more that a majority of procedures will be done in one and the other? Is there a broader shift going on? What does the future look like?
Hard to say. One guy's opinion is I think you're going to see, obviously there's a rise in screening, and we've talked about that before. Early onset colorectal cancer is driving more screening procedures. Those are going to be done in an outpatient center more often than not, I believe, because of, again, the comfort level of the patient, the convenience of it is everything. But there is this talk in the market about more advanced procedures moving into the outpatient setting as well because of the convenience of it. There's also an efficiency. So if you look at endoscopic ultrasound and doing some of those procedures outpatient, even an ERCP procedure has been discussed. How do you do that in an outpatient setting? The efficiency comes from keeping your physicians in one location instead of a physician having to do all of their screening work or more general work at an outpatient center. And then they've got to get in their car, drive to the hospital, wait in the hospital for the inpatients to come in. The inefficiencies there slow down their day. Well, what if I kept them in the center? What would that look like? Could they do more procedures in the same amount of time and still get home and have that work-life balance? So there's so many different factors there, but I do think you're going to start to see more complex procedures shifting into that outpatient setting.
And just focusing on endoscopy and colonoscopy in particular. I mean, we did talk on our Olympus Talks podcast about the push to having patients have their screening done when it should be done, earlier as possible, or early, when advisable. Do you see the move toward ASCs making that a little easier, because people have one fewer reason to kind of put it off? They don't have to go to a hospital. They can go to the strip mall up the street or wherever the ASC is located.
Yeah, I think that's possible. The other factor that we have as a limiting factor is the number of endoscopists to perform screening. There already aren't enough today. Current trend is that we lose more to retirement than we bring in through fellowship.
Okay.
So we somehow have to reverse the trend of physicians doing endoscopy. The additional screening efforts and the other fit tests, et cetera, that bring in more potential positive results, those people then end up needing a colonoscopy. So additional screening is fantastic because we're going to reach the people that won't get a colonoscopy for whatever personal reason. But eventually, if they have a positive result, they're going to need a colonoscopy. And now you're bringing them into the exact same backlog that we already have.
Interesting.
And COVID taught us a lot about, I think, the backlog that can occur with screening colonoscopy.
Interesting. All right. Well, it's a fascinating future. ASCs are certainly going to be a big part of it. And thanks for sharing your thoughts today on the future of MedTech.
Absolutely. My pleasure. Thanks.